Once again, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoons or evenings, early evenings, to join us for our Villanova Law Health Law Programming panel. My name is Harrinarine, and I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at the law school. I'm a 2017 graduate of Villanova Law as well, so a proud alum of the law school. I'm joined today by three great individuals who will introduce themselves shortly, who are really, really wonderful representatives of Villanova Law and the health law programming that we have to offer. So I'm going to turn it over to our professor to start. And then if you want to go, Sarah, and then Lauren as well afterwards with your introductions, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Perfect. So welcome, everyone. And reiterate Phil's thanks to you for giving up time to hear a little bit more about our health law offerings at Villanova. My name is Mike Campbell, obviously. I came to Villanova 13 plus years ago. I'm in my 14th year of teaching, and I teach in the clinic. I teach the Interdisciplinary Mental and Physical Health Law Clinic. I'll talk more about that later on. I came from a very interesting and unique practice. I was a public interest lawyer. I worked for a few decades, helping people who were poor to get access to quality healthcare. So my practice was, it was multifaceted. I did individual cases representing individuals who were fighting with their health insurers sometimes. I litigated class action suits against the government generally, to try to get improvements in the Medicare and Medicaid programs. And in the latter part of my practice with the Pennsylvania Health Law Project, which I helped to co-found and direct, I did a lot of administrative advocacy, some lobbying, primarily at the state level, although I did some testifying before Congress in Washington. I primarily spent my time in Harrisburg, working to urge the folks who run the health department, the insurance department, the Department of Aging, the Department of Human Services, which was back then called the Department of Public Welfare, to improve the programs that serve the poor. So that's the background that I come from. And now I'll turn it over to Sarah to give us a little bit of background on herself and why she came to Villanova.
Thank you, Professor Campbell. That is a tough resume to follow. But my name is Sarah Augustine. I am a third year at Villanova. Prior to coming to Villanova, I was a St. Joe's Hawk, so that's a little bit of a conflict for me. I also worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 4 years. So then once I started at Villanova, I knew I had an interest in healthcare because of my background in the pharmaceutical industry. And also a lot of my family was in healthcare. No one was a lawyer though. So it was interesting to get to navigate the different career paths within the intersection of healthcare and law. So working with individuals like Professor Campbell at my time or during my time at Villanova has been extremely helpful. Since starting at Villanova, I had the opportunity to work at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia my 1L summer as a law clerk. And then during my second year, I had the opportunity to work at a biotech pharmaceutical company. And I did a lot of healthcare related data privacy there, which was really interesting and something that I didn't even know was kind of an option within the realm of pharmaceuticals and healthcare. And then more recently, this past summer, I worked at the University of Pennsylvania, primarily dealing with M&A and transactional matters in their healthcare system. And then right now I'm actually working for Health and Human Services. So being remote like we are tonight has really lent itself to some unique opportunities. So I'm enjoying that. I'm sure I'll touch on my externships a little bit more later on. But it is wonderful to meet you all, and it's exciting to see that there are others interested in health law. And I will turn it over to Lauren.
Sarah, before Lauren says anything, you better folks what M&A is for the uninitiated.
Yes, and I realized one other thing that I forgot. So that is mergers and acquisitions. So I did a lot of transactional work when I was at Penn this past summer, and I'm presently also serving as the president of the Health Law Society. So we have a really great organization this year, and I will touch about opportunities that we have with the society a little bit later as well. And I will now turn it over to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Fisher, and I went to undergrad at Bloomberg College, where I was a public health major. So I knew from the start that I wanted to go to a school that had a strong health law concentration. And a huge part of the reason why I came to Villanova was to participate in the health law clinic that Professor Campbell runs. And my 1L year actually did some volunteer research work with Children's Hospital Philadelphia, with their MLP, which is a medical legal partnership. And this past summer, I did some work more on the corporate side, and I just got a lot of experience, like Sarah did, with mergers and acquisitions. And now I'm serving as the vice president of the Health Law Society.
And maybe when we come back to you, Lauren, you might want to tell people a little bit about what a medical legal partnership is and the role of a legal intern in such a program. And it's a pretty cool concept. I remember when Dr. Zuckerberg, I guess, from up in Boston, started it it must be at least 20 years ago, and it's really caught on nationally. And we have an externship associated with medical legal partnerships. So I'll whet people's appetite and we'll come back to that. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk a little bit about our programs and the courses that we have at Villanova. So when I started practice, if you said health law to somebody, they would probably think medical malpractice. That was essentially what health law was back in ancient times when I first started practice. If you said health law today, or said you were interested in medical malpractice, I would tell you that the health law concentration is not the place for you. You really want to be in the trial practice concentration, because in most firms, medical malpractice is about going to trial and fighting over whether in fact somebody has committed it. Whether you're defending or pursuing a claim against a healthcare provider, that's where you are. Health law these days has morphed into a largely regulatory and transactional area of practice. If you look at a firm that has a health law section or department, probably that section is advising healthcare providers, is assisting them in setting up relationships, drawing up contracts, doing M&A, as Sarah mentioned, mergers and acquisitions, helping them with compliance, how to keep out of trouble, how to make sure that you are not running afoul of HIPAA and the privacy laws. And so health law has morphed into that. And not only is it largely transactional, but in many firms and throughout the practice, it involves private health. I guess that's the way I would describe it, as opposed to public health. It's very much about making sure that people have access to quality healthcare systems, and that if you're a provider, you're getting paid for your service. If you are an insurer, that you're not paying too much. And if you're an employer, that you're getting the best bang for your buck if you are buying insurance, health insurance on behalf of your employees. So in some ways, health law is not exactly a thing unto itself, but is a combination of a lot of other areas of law, whether it's labor law, business law, white-collar crime law, and elder law, a number of different other areas that include a health law component. Now, that's a long-winded way of getting to the fact that we have a concentration at Villanova. We recognize certain students who have decided to take more than their normal share of courses that impact health law, and we link those students with mentors who are able to talk about their area of practice and maybe suggest areas of focus for the students when it comes to selecting courses, and perhaps areas where they can network. Certainly an overused term, but a really important term when it comes to the ultimate goal for many of our students, which is finding employment when they leave. So let me talk about our concentration for a second. We at Villanova really wanted to focus on experiential learning as a major feature of our health law concentration. So our students either take advantage of the robust opportunities for externships, which Sarah and Lauren are going to talk a little bit about, or they are involved in my clinic, the Interdisciplinary Mental and Physical Health Law Clinic. Now, we are the Villanova University Charles Widger School of Law, and Chuck Widger gave us the seed money for my clinic, and he named it because he was very much interested in making sure that we didn't deviate from a mission which included mental health law. I think I'm going to talk about my clinic in a few minutes. I'll defer, but just let me say one other word. You heard Lauren say that she was a public health major, policy major, was it, Lauren?
Just public health. It was
public health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's an area that we're hoping to expand into very soon at Villanova. But public health is things like the pandemic. How do you deal with it? How do we avoid it? What are the laws that that impact whether you can fire an employee for not getting vaccinated? Whether a company that is developing vaccines has particular rights with respect to the vaccines that they developed. Do the usual patent and intellectual property laws apply, or should they be suspended in order to bring products onto the market? And by the way, should we go through the normal process of review before we approve these drugs, or should we jumpstart the process because of the emergency need for vaccines? Things like that that affect the public health and the environment are the subject for public health courses, and we expect that in the not too distant future we will be adding some selections in that area. Right now, our courses are primarily taught by practitioners. As I mentioned, we're focused on experience, not so much on the research associated with the courses that we offer. So I teach the clinic. We also have a healthcare law course, a general course that covers everything from Medicare, Medicaid, ERISA, governance of private health insurance, to nonprofit tax exemptions, because many healthcare providers, particularly the hospital systems, are nonprofits, to the rules governing healthcare fraud and abuse, the False Claims Act, the so-called Stark Law, and the laws that healthcare providers have to be very aware of to make sure that they have not engaged in illegal kickbacks by referring to themselves. And we also, in that course, deal with concepts associated with insurance, such as managed care. The idea is to give people a background. And frankly, for purposes of defending yourself and your family, I think everybody ought to take that course, not just those who are in the concentration or interested in practicing health law. We also have a healthcare business and compliance course. Jeff Miller, who is a practicing attorney in that area, teaches that. We have a course focused on civil and criminal compliance and fraud and abuse that Judy Smith, who is an assistant U.S. attorney who brings fraud cases on behalf of the government, she teaches that. Dean Centeno teaches the Med-Mal class. I said that belongs really in the litigation department, but every health lawyer has to know about medical malpractice. And Dean Centeno practiced Med-Mal defense for a big Philadelphia firm before she came to Villanova to teach. And so on. The elder law course and our other courses are also taught by practitioners in the area. The courses in pharmaceutical and et cetera are also taught by practitioners. And so I've talked a lot. Hopefully you're not asleep at the other end. Turn it over we'll go in the same order and let Sarah talk about the externships and what she has done in the externship area.
Sarah, can I kind of really quickly, I just want to let those in attendance know that you all can use the Q&A box if you have any questions throughout the presentation. We want you all to sort of be able to throw your questions in there. That way we can get to all your questions before we finish the panel today. But just be mindful of that. The Q&A box, not the chat box. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. And Professor Campbell, Sarah, and Lauren will all be able to answer your questions later on. If you have questions specifically related to admissions, I'll be here as well to address those. But yeah, like Professor Campbell said, Sarah and Lauren, if you all want to sort of chat about, first, if we do this instead, the classes you've taken at Villanova Law that relate to health law, maybe if you could pick out some of your favorite classes. You don't have to say Professor Campbell's, but whatever ones were your favorite and sort of, maybe what about the class stood out to you or why you chose to take it or the, subject matter that stood out to you, that'd be great. Sarah, if you want to go first.
Of course. Well, I guess to start off, to reiterate what Professor Campbell said, the health focused classes are really unique. Every time I took a class, with the exception, I think, of Dean Centeno's, I was able to meet a practicing attorney. And the classes themselves were wonderful networking opportunities with the professors. And then I found that a lot of the professors would bring in their colleagues or other individuals that were well-versed in a particular topic. So I thought personally, since I did have such an interest in healthcare and the law, whatever that meant to me my 1L year, those relationships I was able to build with the adjunct professors and the speakers they brought in was tremendously helpful. I actually got my 2L summer job through a speaker program that my healthcare and the law professor had. I really enjoyed listening to one of the speakers and followed up with him. So it was just a really good opportunity. So I'll start with that. And to pick a favorite, I don't know if I could do that. Maybe I'm biased. And even though I'm not interested in medical malpractice, Dean Centeno's course was very interesting and very different from anything else that I touched on so far in school. Forgive me, I'm looking at a list of the classes I have taken. But I thought that all of the classes are very unique and have a lot of different things to offer. Healthcare and the law was a course that I was able to take my fall semester of my 2L year, and it really did help tee up what healthcare and the law meant, the different intersections of law within the health system in the US, and it really did help give me a baseline understanding. And then I was able to kind of understand the different niche areas that were more interesting to me. It was a great networking opportunity, as I said. I really enjoyed the medical malpractice course. And then I guess beyond that, I was able to take criminal healthcare fraud and abuse in the spring last year. And as I mentioned previously, right now I'm interning at Health and Human Services, which is a government agency. And really having that foundation has allowed me to kind of start my externship this semester with a lot of valuable knowledge. And I think that that was quite impressive to a lot of the attorneys that I'm working with that have been giving me crash courses in Stark law and different anti-kickback laws, federal false claim statutes. And I actually have a pretty good baseline from taking that class with Judy Smith. So I think that, yeah, I definitely recommend starting out with healthcare and the law. If you do have any sort of an interest, I'm sure you'll find different aspects of that are palatable, are exciting to you. But yeah, you really can tailor the courses to the different areas that you're interested in. And sorry, I had a long day of class. Forgive the stuttering. So beyond that, I also have had the opportunity to do 3 separate externships since my 1L year, and that has been tremendously helpful with my understanding of the areas that I'm interested in and also the things that kind of click well for me. When I came into law school, I was a sales rep in my past life in the pharmaceutical industry. So I thought I was going to come in and want to litigate, probably do med mal, be in a courtroom. And then kind of through my experience, I realized I really like the transactional work. So then in my first year, I, as I previously mentioned, externed at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I was able to do a lot of different contractual work there. You can imagine a hospital system as large as CHOP, especially dealing with such a vulnerable patient population, which is children, has hundreds and thousands of agreements, whether that be patient focused or just with transporting patients, you name it, there's contracts for it. And I was able to see a lot of different types of contracts, help learn some drafting skills, and really start to move into that area of transactional healthcare work that I was interested in. So that externship experience was wonderful. And then after that, I externed at Iovance Biotherapeutics, which is a biotech company that makes different oncology products. And it was really cool for me to kind of nerd out and learn the science behind some of the drugs that they are developing and have on market already. And I was able to see a whole new area of the law, which is data privacy, which I'm sure if any of you know the way drugs are made, as far as the R&D that goes into it through clinical trials, ensuring that, you know, the patients, the subjects, all of that is protected is a huge part of a pharmaceutical company, especially through the development phase. And there's a lot of changing regulations in that as well. So I was able to learn a lot there. Didn't think I would like data privacy, ended up loving it. So then in my later internship, which was last summer, I was able to use a lot of those skills. And then, sorry, forgive me if I'm rambling. I've learned a lot, I guess. And then more recently, as I mentioned, now I'm at Health and Human Services. It's only just begun. I think I'm in my 3rd week of this externship. But it again seems like a wonderful opportunity, and it really is tied into some of my coursework. And one thing that I always kind of like to reiterate and go back to the professors that have taught me the classes is how helpful it actually is, especially if you do have a specific interest area and you're able to take these classes prior to any sort of work experience or externship. It really does allow you to get more out of the experience. It's great to have the crash courses while I'm in my current externship, but kind of being able to start at, forgive me, now there's sirens in the background, to start at, point C instead of A, I think has been really impressive for some of the attorneys. So it speaks volumes to the course offerings that we have at Villanova. Forgive me if I've missed anything, I think.
No, that was great, Sarah. Thank you so much. And before Lauren goes, I just wanted to give everybody that's attending a bit of a background on what externships are. I know that some of you may have a sense of that, but essentially externships are internships, but you receive academic credit for the work that you're doing. So Sarah and Lauren have been doing externships during their time in law school, and they'll go out of the law school to work in Center City, Philadelphia, or in the suburbs or in other areas as well geographically to do work related to whatever area of law they have an interest in, specifically for these purposes, health law. They'll work under practicing attorneys and receive academic credit at different credit levels, 3 credits per semester, 4 credits per semester, or per externship, based on what they agree to in terms of the number of hours they're choosing to work at each of these locations. And so every student that comes to Villanova and every other ABA required law school has to do 6 credits of experiential learning to graduate. And we let our students do up to 17. So there's a lot of flexibility there for students like Sarah and Lauren to do the clinic, to do externships, to do multiple externships, and to really get their hands and feet wet in different areas of the law and or just in one area of the law, if that's really where your passion lies. Lauren, before you go ahead and do this and answer that question about your favorite classes and any sort of experiential learning you've done, can I ask everyone, all of our panelists, to throw your email addresses into the chat box just so that our attendees can have them moving forward? Those of you that are attending the event today, feel free to reach out to any of the students or Professor Campbell if you have any questions moving forward. They're sort of, your go-to people. Sarah and Lauren, they are the president and VP of the Health Law Society, and they're going to chat later about what that group does and the events that they do and the mission of the group. But really great individuals and resources to have. And so once they do that, Lauren, go ahead and feel free to answer that question about your classes and your experiential learning opportunities.
All right, so I am actually in the process of applying to externships. I'm fresh out of 1L year, so I'm kind of starting the process right now for the spring and summer. But this semester I just started my health law concentration courses. We have foundation courses, which are like business organizations that you need to know in almost everything you do within law, and administrative law. So I'm taking those 2, and I'm also taking healthcare in the law. And those provide a really good introductory to the other classes I'm going to build on. And I'm really enjoying them thus far, even though administrative law is not like health centered. I'm making it more health centered. We just had an assignment due to comment on a proposed regulation, and I did mine on how the Medicare coverage and innovation technology, they want to repeal that program. And I got to comment on it, and I might actually submit my comment, which is pretty cool.
Professor Campbell, if I can turn it over to you, I know that you mentioned a little bit briefly about the Interdisciplinary Mental and Physical Health Law Clinic. Can you chat with our attendees about how they can get into that clinic and what sorts of cases individuals have worked on being a part of that clinic in the most recent semesters and years?
Yeah, happy to do that, Phil. And let me just add on to something you said a few seconds ago, which is all ABA accredited schools across the country have to require that to graduate you take 6 credits of experiential learning. The ABA defines experiential learning as simulation courses, which is it's where there's a project, but everything is simulated. You're not actually involved in practice. Or an externship where you work in an office or judicial chambers and assist somebody who is engaged in practice. So you're very much the person who is doing research, perhaps engaging in discovery and other activities associated with helping somebody else to handle their case. And finally, there's the clinic experience in which, while you're supervised, it's your case. So students actually represent clients under the state or federal student practice rules. They are certified legal interns. And frankly, when my students handle cases, I am present and I will debrief. I take lots of notes, but I don't sit at counsel table. I sit in the back of the courtroom or the hearing room or the Zoom room, if that's what it is. And I almost never say anything because it's about the student learning from doing it themselves. At Villanova, we don't count the simulation courses toward the 6 credits. We offer simulations. We think they can be very valuable. They give everybody a common experience. But we want our students to get out there to practice either in an externship or through our clinics. Now, the Interdisciplinary Mental and Physical Health Law Clinic is one of 6 clinics that we have at Villanova. It's a litigation clinic. And all of our clinics operate off the same kind of a platform in that our students are going to learn interviewing, counseling, case planning, negotiation. They are going to put those into practice, and they will appear at hearings in which they have to do opening statements, direct examination, introduction of documents, cross-examination, and at the end of that experience, we hope that they will reflect. In fact, we definitely limit the number of cases that our students do in the clinic so that they have time to reflect, because we want a Villanova lawyer to be a reflective lawyer, somebody who at the end of 10 years of practice has 10 years of experience rather than 1 year of experience that they've repeated 10 times. We want them to incorporate into their persona as an attorney that they set aside time to reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and how they can get better for the next experience. Okay, so it's within that context that we have our interdisciplinary mental and physical health law clinic. Our clinic handles cases at the intersection of law and medicine so that there is a legal standard that has to be met, and it's met through the introduction of medical testimony and evidence. Three types of cases that are pretty characteristic of our clinic. We help people with surrogate decision-making. What's that? Well, people who are having difficulty making decisions on their own have certain legal tools available to them. It may be that it's the power of attorney or an advance directive, which is a document in which somebody voluntarily gives up some control, or it may be through the guardianship process. Britney Spears has been very involved in that process recently. You may have heard about that. So in a guardianship proceeding, somebody asks the court to appoint someone to essentially be in charge of the affairs of someone else. Takes medical testimony as to the state of mind of the individual who is the alleged incapacitated person. And our students get involved in those cases, sometimes assisting in bringing guardianships, sometimes in fighting them. We also handle disability claims, primarily SSI claims, because under the student practice rule, we have to represent people of low income. So these are folks who, through the Social Security Administration, are seeking some additional income because of their inability to work. And we assist them in proving that they meet the standard for disability. And finally, we assist people who are fighting with their insurance company because something that their doctor said they needed, the insurance company said you don't need, and we're not going to pay for it. So those folks have a right of appeal, and students in our clinic assist in those appeals. Those, frankly, are my personal favorite. And I'll just tell you that last week, two of my students had a hearing. They represented a gentleman who is quadriplegic. He's in his 30s. He was in an accident when he was 17. He was left with no use of his legs and virtually no use of his arms since then. Really engaging young fella, amazingly optimistic given what he's been through. And he had been getting a personal assistant to help him with things like bathing, eating, dressing, getting to the bathroom, emptying his catheter bag, that sort of thing, for the last several years. However, recently a health plan assessed him and decided you can get by with 7 hours a day instead of 16. Our students fought a knockdown, drag-out battle that started about this time last year and just ended yesterday when the final appeal, they won back the 16 hours a day. I can't tell you how happy our client was, and I can't tell you how ecstatic our students were. In fact, they were complimented by the individual running the last hearing for their presentation at the end of the presentation. Really cool thing for a student. They have tremendous confidence now in their own abilities, and I think they're pointed in the right direction because, to my mind, that's what lawyering is about, is seeking justice on behalf of a client. And I think in this case, in particular, they were able to get that. So that's one of the cases I'll talk about. Pass it up and pass it on. I don't know, Phil, if you want to distribute and let Mark talk some more, if you want to get to the questions. It's up to you.
No, I'll take it over for a little bit here. And I just want to encourage everybody who's in attendance to continue to throw any questions you have into the Q&A box. We have a couple in here right now, and we'll make sure we get to them before we finish the presentation today. But I do want to go to Sarah and Lauren for one quick thing before Professor Campbell, I give you the last word on sort of the health law programming at Villanova as a whole. Sarah, Lauren, can you both chat for a little bit about the Health Law Society? I know that last year we had blended learning, and so there were a lot of virtual opportunities for students to engage, but we are in person fully now. And so there have been a lot of activities on campus this past year, the last few weeks when the semester started, thankfully. So can you just chat as the president and VP of the Health Law Society about what the group stands for and some of the events you all have planned for this year and what maybe some of the events are that you've participated in the past?
Of course, I will kick it off. So the purpose of the Health Law Society is to be a nonpartisan organization on campus that discusses a lot of the health issues that also intersect with law. And that sounds very vague, but we do try and keep the events and topics that we discuss within the organization very open. As you know, we've all already highlighted, there's a lot of different areas within healthcare and the law. So through the Health Law Society, the main functions kind of our organization right now are to provide networking panels for students. So we always do at least 3 of those in the spring. Sometimes we do one in the fall as well, where we bring in a variety of different types of practicing attorneys, some that work in larger firms handling healthcare issues, individuals that will work for the government, whether that is for an agency. As Professor Campbell mentioned, one of the adjunct professors, Judy Smith, is in the U.S. Attorney's Office handling healthcare federal false claims issues. So we've had panels with her and her colleagues, and then also individuals that are in-house, whether that be at a hospital system or a pharmaceutical company. So we try and make sure that all of the 1L students have the opportunity to join a panel and see the vast variety of areas within healthcare and get to speak with practicing attorneys. So that is one really important thing that we ensure we do, at least the 3 panels in the spring. Beyond that, we like to provide interesting panels that will discuss current topics in healthcare. Last fall, we hosted a Medicare for All debate. So we had 2 individuals with very different opinions on the issue speak, and we partnered with other the American Constitutional Society and FedSoc, so 2 different partisan organizations on kind of either side of the issue, and then the Health Law Society provided a moderator to kind of facilitate questions. And then we also had an individual come on and give background about the issue. So I'm sure you guys are all somewhat familiar with the kind of contention with the idea of Medicare for All versus a private payer system. So it was a really interesting event. It was over Zoom, but we had, I think, close to 300 students and practicing attorneys attend. So it was a really exciting opportunity to hear a lot of different viewpoints. So that was our biggest event in the fall. And then we did a number of other panels. Trying to think, there was a lot that we did last year. We did a lot of fundraising. So there is an organization that provides, it's CC Cancer Cancer Support Community of Philadelphia, I believe is the name of the organization. But they provide a lot of good services for individuals going through treatment, at a large variety of services, whether that is donations, support programs, advocacy groups, and groups where individuals going through cancer treatment can also just support groups is the word I was looking for. And they also do have a legal arm to it, where they have services like Professor Campbell spoke to that can help with any insurance decisions. So we partnered with them and we did a number of fundraising events. We had a small panel where an individual from their organization came and spoke with students that were interested in opportunities to volunteer. So we do really like to do community outreach as well. I think that that's really important as the Health Law Society, and especially at Villanova. So that is kind of another arm of it. Beyond that, we launched a blog. So it's our Health Law Society blog. I will definitely put the link in the chat if any of you want to check it out. But that's been a great opportunity for students to get published, especially in your 1L year. You're really only going to be writing your memos for classes. So beyond that, there's not a ton of opportunities for any sort of creative writing. You will be busy enough without it. But if you are interested, I know Lauren took the opportunity to write for the blog, and that gives you a chance to get published. It's great to talk about as you interview. It's also just a great resource for anybody that is interested in health law. We try and post bi-weekly. So that was a big, a heavy lift last year. We did a number of events for Women's Health Month where we talked about emerging technologies in women's health, femtech, and we had Professor O'Rourke, who taught my healthcare and the law class, moderate, and she brought a number of practicing attorneys that work within the space, which was really interesting. So that definitely touches on IP and a few other areas of the law. But so yeah, it is really all encompassing. I feel like I'm rambling again. But we really do try and create a lot of different events. So we do have that large variety. So that was just last year. And this year we are working on an Afghan and Haitian refugee fundraiser with, I think, 12 other student organizations are involved. We're spearheading a few different events to try and get funding. And all of the donations are going to a local organization that has helped with the settlement of Haitian and Afghan refugees. That's been our big focus so far this semester. Coming up, we have some mental health and wellness events that we're working on. I'm realizing how busy Lauren and I are this semester. But then we're going to do a panel. It's going to be about the potential for vaccine mandates in November. So we really do have a lot going on. It's a lot of opportunity, but we do have a large e-board. So it's not just Lauren and I. We have about 7 other individuals that we work closely with to coordinate these events. They're open to the entire school. So you don't need to be doing the heavy lifting to come check them out. And even if any of you on this panel are interested in our future panels or future events, I definitely can drop the link to our blog. And if you want to send me your email, I'm happy to send you our newsletter that we have out. We are trying to publish monthly, another thing on the list. But yeah, we just really like to compile kind of all the current issues, try and create a few opportunities to touch base throughout the semester, whether that be through a panel or a fundraising event, and just create an ongoing dialogue through our blog. I am definitely rambling now. I will turn it over to Lauren.
I will say that much. Obviously, the Health Law Society has done a lot of great work throughout the virtual learning and obviously presently. Lauren, if you want to just chat really quickly about what you may have worked on through the blog, and then I will turn it over to Professor Campbell before we get to the questions.
Yeah, so as a 1L, I applied to be the blog coordinator, and that was really cool that we have an opportunity to be published as a 1L. So that just involved, the e-board definitely helped me last year, but I just edited for as much as I could as a 1L blog submissions, and it was a really good opportunity to learn how to you'll see this in 1L, your Blue Book citation, just a lot of practice with that. And then I actually have the link to the blog in my resume, and it's been a huge talking point. Everyone loves to talk about what I've written for the blog and just the fact that we had 1L writing experience. And I do want to stress that the Health Law Society has given so much networking opportunities, just even last year, just by a conversation I had with Sarah. I was able to get a connection to do the volunteer at the MLP at CHOP that I was talking about. And we have a lot of stuff happening this year. We have a really busy schedule and a lot of networking opportunities. I will say something I'm excited about is that we have a Greater Philadelphia happy hour with all the health law societies in the Philadelphia area, Rutgers, Drexel, Temple, Penn, and that's going to be just a lot of networking opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lauren. And it's exciting, obviously, because now you get to be in person fully and have these in-person events as well. Professor Campbell, we have a couple questions in the Q&A box that I want to get to, but before I do that, I just want to give you the last word to just chat with us a little bit about why you'd say, Villanova Law's health law programs, why do you feel like they're particularly strong, and why those sort of attending today should be considering?
So I guess I come back to the experiential component to ours. That's really been our focus. We want our students to have the opportunity to network with practicing lawyers. We also want to offer a broad array of externships. I mean, we've kind of tip of the iceberg is what you've heard from Sarah and Lauren in terms of some of the opportunities. One that I think is pretty neat is Gift of Life, where that's the kidney donor, the organ donor program. My wife happens to be a kidney donor, so that's a particular interest to me. That's another one that's kind of unique. But a lot of our students come up with their own. They say, here's an area of interest. Do you know somebody working in that area? Or I'm going to cold call or cold email, if that's a term, and see if they have a place for me to work, to pursue my interest. And a number of our externships are built around student-initiated contacts. So I'll just say that. I think the experiential piece is really kind of what sets us apart. I don't know if any of the other schools, locally at least, have health law clinics as such. And one piece of mine that's particularly unique is the fact that in the spring semester, I co-teach it with the director of the nurse practitioner program across the tracks at the university. And so that Professor Blunt brings graduate nurses, graduate students into our clinic in the spring. And that makes it a really neat experience because you can learn about your professions by holding them up to another profession. What are the ethical standards? What are the expectations? What does an attorney-client relationship look like as compared to a nurse practitioner patient relationship, et cetera? So I think that's pretty neat. And the two professions learn a lot about one another, and some of the distrust goes away, and they learn to communicate, which is critical if you are a lawyer trying to get information from a healthcare provider. You got to know how to talk to them. As I've had to learn how to talk to my wife, who happens to be a physician. So.